Gabby, I love you.
Kimber Fox, thank you so much for being on Interview with the Indies, my third female guest, because it's been, like I said in the last episode, it's been very difficult getting women on the show. I don't know why, but hey, I'm glad you had the time today to talk.
Thank you for having me.
You're one half of the Fox and the Jackal. You and your husband, Asher Andrews, have been a standout mixed tag team around the Gulf Coast. So, how did you and Asher meet?
We actually met years and years ago. We've been together for over 10 years. So, years and years ago at a party. It was just like I guess a weird course of events. So,
Well, so were y'all like interested in each other then, or it just came like later?
am I allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Yes, you can.
Reason I was late, so here's my beautiful blue hands. I'm a hairstylist, in my shoot job. Uh, Not no surprise to anybody, but so I was cutting someone's hair in the bathroom at a party, and him and someone else were like hanging out in there, and he said something, and I for some reason was on one and just said, "Shut the fuck up, no one's talking to you." So that was some of my first words to my lovely husband. And then later on, we became friends, and it kind of, I guess, like we started talking, and because I think him and I were both seeing somebody at the time that we met. But that ended very, very shortly after him and I met. Because I think we were both kind of on the way out. But so we just kind of like went from there. Eventually, I was just like, "Hey, I'm very interested in you. So what are we doing essentially? Like we're friends and we're talking and we're hanging out and we're doing all this stuff, but like what are we doing?" So I was definitely the aggressor in that situation.
And as for the wrestling, were y'all already both interested in wrestling? Were y'all wrestling fans, or did that come later? Like, how did that conversation come up? Like, oh, I like wrestling too, or how did that happen?
Actually, so I wasn't, he was the one, he grew up watching wrestling, like him and his brother, were on the trampoline doing all sorts of stuff that they probably shouldn't have been doing off of the roof. And so I kind of didn't get into it until a little bit later in our relationship. And then there was a like during 2020, we're all stuck in the house and we're all like just trying to figure out what we're wanting to do with our lives at this point. And he was like, if I get the chance at some point in time to do wrestling training, to wrestle, I would like to do that at some point just before I like, get too old or whatever. And I told him, I was like, if you do it, I'll do it with you. And then we went and we got the opportunity to do it. And then we went and did it, and we just kind of like got hooked immediately. So it's been nonstop pretty much since we started. We've only been wrestling for about 2 or 3 years.
Hey, it's never too late. So hey, I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
old y'all are. Y'all look young, so I don't know.
We'll just leave it at that.
So where did like the fox and the jackal come from?
I already knew like what I was going to do as far as my wrestling name went, and we were trying to come up with a stable name for us. And I was kind of just blowing through a bunch of different things. And, there are so many people that go by Wolf or Wolf or something in the wrestling business that I didn't want it to be redundant. So I was like, what other kind of animal that's relative to a fox can we bring to make this sound good, make sense, and kind of roll off the tongue? And so I did a little bit of research, and I was like, okay, the fox and the jackal sounds cool. Like it just sounds, I don't know, it sounds like a cohesive team. And I think at one point when I had sent it to him, he was like, I think Don Callis at one point in time, I think actually went by the Jackball. And he's like, well, Don Callis doesn't do that anymore. So he's just doing his own thing. So we don't have to, we don't really have to worry about, that being weird, I guess. But yeah, we just kind of, he was like, all right, well, that sounds cool. And we just kind of like ran with it from that point.
Being new to the business, like 2 years in, and you weren't that much of a wrestling fan. So what? How did you study? What did you study? Which wrestlers to like help you? Get in the groove of things.
Well, I have an unpopular opinion, which now I think it's a little bit different, just because of where it's headed. But uh, I actually really started liking wrestling when AEW came out because it was something different, I guess, than your, regular mainstream wrestling. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just, it was something that I hadn't really gotten to see as much as far as like being able to be a little more creative, where I feel as like bigger companies like WWE, like all of that is handled backstage. Like and NXT, OG Black and Gold NXT was fucking it. Like that was definitely another one that like made me be like, okay. And I of course I love Rhea Ripley. She's lovely and wonderful. And I am trying to think of who else I really like started just really enjoying, because I also go back and forth with where the different characters that they give people, whereas like I will really enjoy someone in this character, but then when they put them in another character, I'm like, you're not really showcasing who they are or who they like. It doesn't allow them to shine as much as they had been available to in the other character.
I feel like I already know what you're gonna say, but I'm gonna just ask anyway. So, thoughts on the Divas era?
I've kind of kept my brain away from it as much as I could. I mean, I know, I'm sure some people probably have an opinion that, like it rocketed women's wrestling and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's like it's very condescending. It's very like just it's a women are sex objects, but here, look at them fight kind of deal. And like, I mean, if I guess if that's what it took to like kickstart women being more like prevalent in wrestling, cool. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with embracing your sexuality and riding with it, and like that's not even like the point. But it if it like now, if you see a female wrestler that is very overtly sexual, it's like they get mad about it, and they're like, why are you so sexy? Why is your ass out? Why are your boobs out? Like blah blah. And it's like, okay, but you guys weren't saying that during the Divas era when that was actually the only thing that was happening. So what's like now, right? Like you're changing your narrative based on like what? I just don't understand why you can feel some type of way about loving the Divas era, but now her boobs are out and that's not cool anymore.
I feel it could be because women have come so far in wrestling. WWE has painted them in a better light nowadays. So if people like for example, like what if people complain about how the female wrestlers are dressing, it's like, well, when it was the Divas era, there were complaints about, you were like there was complaints about them being, I wouldn't say forced, but like, people were complaining about that. So now we're in a different era. So why are you doing that?
There we go. You found it. Because it's the women's idea, and at that point in time, it was the men's idea. So that's the problem. Okay, never mind. We figured it out.
I think we did. Yeah, that's all I could think of. Because I mean, why else? It's like, no, now you have the opportunity to, do what you want and they're doing what they want. So why does that bother you? So, okay, cool. So y'all's aesthetic gives very much rave, party, glow in the dark, and I like it. Your hair is glowing in the dark right now. In like the background is glow in the dark, which is so cool. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. And you're a hairstylist, so okay, it makes sense. Like, so you do your own hair yourself.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I have to make sure that so there is UV reactive neon dye, and I actually did not realize that I was using it until I got under a black light and somebody was like, "Yo, your hair is glowing." And I was like, "What?" And then I figured out from there and I was like, okay, well, I knew it existed, but I didn't know that the one particular one that I had was UV reactive. So then from there on, I was like, okay, we have to make sure, like, if I have to get a new color, like, I'll have to Google if it's UV reactive or not before I'll get it and put it on my head.
Is that good for your hair?
I mean, it doesn't really, I think it's just like the pigment, like the color pigment. It's the same thing as like, I guess, different clothing pigments, like glow under UV versus other ones that don't. But because it's just a direct dye. So it's not like it doesn't have any developer or anything like that. You just throw it on and it's there.
So far for you being in the business, are have you noticed or have you encountered any obstacles that you feel women may go through more than men?
Uh, it just depends on, I guess, where you're at. I don't know. I'm trying to think because that's such a loaded question because yes, absolutely, but I'm trying to think of like examples. It there Here's one that I can think of right off the bat that's kind of like it's not really necessarily an obstacle until it is, if that makes sense. I've had now two or three people after a match that I've had come up to me and say, normally the women's match is the bathroom break, but I really enjoyed watching your match. And I was like,
People still use that. That's such an outdated insult nowadays. Like that's so outdated.
here's the thing, it's a compliment. They think they're complimenting you by telling you like the you're not like other girls bullshit. And then you're just like, but that's not, you don't have to compliment me to put other women down. Like that's not necessary in any way, shape, or form. And so it's just the fact that, and also I did have a woman say that to me one time, and I was shook. I was like, so I don't, it's wild. Like I don't know if maybe I don't deal with as much of some of the things that other women deal with because I am a little more abrasive. When I was in hair school, I worked at an auto parts store. So I have worked in male dominated environments before. I'm very familiar with male dominated environments. So it's almost like you have to like, I don't want to say like puff your chest out and be like, don't fuck with me, but you kind of do because I feel like a lot of people get run over if they don't. And so I think just with me being a little more aggressive, like if anybody has an issue with me or has like something where they don't want to say it, then they'll just go talk shit. Like they'll go talk shit and then I get to hear it later and I'm just like, are you scared? Like what are we doing? But I have noticed like definitely whereas people are a little more into just the women's match in general just because it's women and they're like I guess depending on the crowd, they're like, oh, you don't really have to do a lot here because it's X crowd and they just want to see women like smack each other and blah blah blah. It's like no, like it's still a wrestling show. Like that's super weird. Like why would you say that? If everybody cares as much about the men's matches as they do about the women's match, like why do we need to downplay ourselves just because of the crowd? So it had such a complex such a complex situation because it wrestling is a male dominated environment and I do believe that is why there are so few female wrestlers because it's it can be more discouraging, it can be harder, like dudes can be creepy to you, like there's more to deal with, but at the same time, like women can get booked more and can get paid more. So it just, I don't want to say it evens out because it doesn't, but there's definitely a lot of like give and take with it.
And you would think like with the current climate of wrestling, again, like we mentioned, women are being booked in a better light these days. You would think it would be
Right.
respected more, especially in the indies, but it just seems like women are still getting the backlash.
And that's another thing that reminded me of. So I am relatively tall for a woman. And so I'm like close to the same size as a lot of the guys on the indies. And even like built the same size as a lot of the dudes on the indies. And so when people get really weird about me fighting men, it just makes me feel it just doesn't make me feel good because I'm like, okay, like we're literally the same size. We're the same size with the same weight class. Like, what are you saying? I don't
You mean hearing stuff about that from like audience members? Like,
either audience members or like I've even pitched to a promoter or promoters before, like, hey, I'll have a match with so and so, and I'm not like weird about having matches with men. But a lot of promoters are super weird about that because they think audiences are super weird about that. And there's definitely a way to structure the match in which it's not a woman beating match. Like, because I've worked matches with men before where like I can hear people in the crowd being like, just fucking hit her. And I'm just like, thank you. Like, let's just it's equal. I'm the same size as you. Like, it's not, but you know, I don't. I'm like, it's also not like MMA or boxing. So it's not like it's that kind of situation either. So I don't know.
being like fresh in the business, what has been the most surprising thing about it to you
The amount of drama that people have with each other
in real life?
in real life, yes, there is a lot of drama. It's one of those things where I'm just like, y'all want to say that women cause issues and are the drama and talk shit, but I have never in my life heard more drama than I have from some of these men in these locker rooms. I'm just like, what? Like you are grown ass adults. You're grown ass adults. Like figure it out. Just talk to each other. Like it's not that hard. But I mean, I guess that's just people in general. But it feels more prevalent with there's a lot of with wrestling comes a lot of egos. And so when people's egos get hurt and their feelings get hurt and then their ego drives that and then it's done. It's over.
I've always said, men are just as messy as women.
They 100% are. They just try to play like they're not. Like, it's so stupid. I'm like, just,
Any wrestling horror stories that you can think of that you would like to share?
I feel like I would have to paraphrase this because it's such a long, it's a long drawn out thing. So when we first started, we trained for a little while with Diamond Championship Wrestling, and things were going fine. You know, everything was cool. And then there was one particular show where we were doing a mixed tag, myself and Asher, and then the other tag team were like trying to go through our stuff, and the the person who was producing the show wanted to see the finish. Meanwhile, there's two other vets trying to deal with whatever the boys are doing. Me and the other girl were trying to show them the finish, but the boys were in the way. So the producer gets angry and says, you know, that he's been trying to see the finish for the last 5 minutes and he still hasn't seen the finish. And I said, you know, we've been trying to show it to you, but they're in the way. And he said, well, if that's how you feel about it, this can be a men's match only. And so I was like, excuse me? Like what? So I just crashed out. I was like, here's the finish. Get away from me, you know, whatever. So I was about to leave that day. Like I was pissed. I was just over it. And then uh I was talked into staying. The next day, we come back, we're having a meeting. I'm standing next to same girl, and I didn't even say anything. I just like nudged her. You know how you'll just like give somebody a flap whenever like somebody says something. And he calls us out specifically and says, ladies, are you with us? Like asking if I'm listening during the meeting. And I'm like, I didn't even say anything. Like I said nothing. So there goes second time. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. And again, still didn't leave. But there was no there was no issues after that for a little while. And then a little bit down the road, the same producer was asking everybody, you know, what would you like to see in the company? What would you like to do? This, that, and the other. Like, if you have any concerns, like, please voice them. We're all a family. We should all be able to talk to each other. Rah, 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 rah. So I said that I would like to accompany Asher to the ring and vice versa because, and he was like, no, no, just that will not happen. No. Like I'm trying to get you guys separately going, just no. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that doesn't, okay. So then he says something later about tag teams. And I was like, well, I would like to do more like intergender tag teams and stuff like that. He literally like puts his hand in my face and says, just stop, just stop. And then I was just like, okay, well then like why are you asking for opinions if you don't want them? So a couple days later, I'm stewing, I'm pissed. So I orchestrate this text message that says, you know, like, hey, I don't want us to have any issues with each other. I'm trying to be respectful, but I feel really disrespected. You know, you've said that like we can come to you guys about things, but we did and we were shot down and I now feel unsafe to voice my opinion with you. And he responded like everything was cool, everything was fine. And then, like 2 days later, I get a call from one of the owners of the company saying that I'm no longer allowed to attend training anymore. because he did not feel comfortable training me anymore because I used the word unsafe. And this was also, by the way, during the Vince McMahon trial, so I'm sure that didn't help things. Um, but they said that I was banned from training because he did not feel comfortable anymore, but Asher was more than welcome to continue training.
Well, hey, that was a sign. They weren't worth your time. So,
I mean, that's really what it amounted to. Like it really amounted to it honestly helped me and Asher like skyrocket getting out of that toxic environment, getting into other environments, getting to meet more people, getting to, have better connections, better relationships with other people. Because, I mean, we were being pigeonholed essentially where we were then. And so it just, at the time, it was definitely traumatic, but in the long run, it benefited us more, I feel like, than it hurt us. So, because we reached out to people, we got support from people who legitimately cared about us. We found out which people were little worms and didn't care about us. And then, here we are. So,
well, that's on them.
yeah.
I mean, I believe in karma, so they probably got their karma. If not, they will. So,
Yeah.
but hey, look where y'all are at now. So hey, y'all just gonna keep moving
Right.
up. So yeah. Oh, sound like he had a problem with women.
Yes, 100%. Because I tried to bring that up at one point in time about how I felt like he talked to the women wrestlers differently than he talked to the male wrestlers, and also just the fact that this was a huge red flag whenever like we would come back from a match and we would come back in there wanting feedback, wanting whatever. He wouldn't really say anything to us other than work the camera more. Whereas he had like a whole thing to say to the men. And it's just like, that's all you have to say is work the camera more. But then they get this whole thing about, well, what was this move? Well, what was this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's not helping us. Like, it's just like, it's weird. I don't know. But yeah, he definitely had a problem with women standing up to him. Well, no, he has a problem with anybody standing up to him. I'm gonna be real about that. But it probably didn't help.
Thank you so much for being on my show. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, because who knows when I'll get another girl on here. But yeah, it's just so interesting, like just talking to the women, because I'm a girl, I guess. But it's like,
Right.
ugh.
Well, and that's why too. I've gotten asked by like other like men podcasters, and nothing against that. I've done podcasts with men before. It's not an issue. I just like I would much rather sit down and talk to a woman about wrestling because I don't know. I feel like we get it on the same level, if that makes sense. Like what our experiences could be a little more shared, whereas like I feel like I have to explain myself a little bit further in that situation just because they do not understand the female experience.